Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Just a short while back, Rahul Gandhi's Chhatro Ki Goonj program at Prayagraj has got over. And if I show you the glimpses, you would be surprised to see that energy, which started with Kota, then went to Dehradun, and now at Prayagraj, the same energy, the same enthusiasm. It was almost like unlocking the youth potential. Now, Rahul Gandhi, you can see on the stage in a pink linen shirt, and the youth was going gaga over Rahul Gandhi, and simply about not about his persona, but more about what he stood for, the cause he stood for. And you can see the energy. If I could just amplify the audio for you a little, those who've missed out on, I'm just showing. We're going to show you some pictures. Yes, there you have it.
Namaskar. How are you? How is Prayagraj? Thank you for this wonderful welcome. Thank you for this love and affection. ये शहर मेरी फैमिली का घर यहाँ होता था, तो यहाँ आकर मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है.
So he started with expressing his proximity with Prayagraj because it was his family home, and that's what he started with. But let me tell you, when he started unfolding the entire presentation, there were three key points which he spoke about: Dard, data, and Daulat. This is the troika he spoke about, and his entire presentation was based on these three pillars: your pain, your data, and the way the money has been minted out of you all. That's what Rahul Gandhi was trying to convey to all the youngsters who had assembled in Allahabad. And let me tell you, they were just not students from Allahabad. They were Patna, from other eastern UP areas. Lot of students had come in, and what we are told is that more than 1 lakh students had gathered on the ground and also outside the ground. That's what we are told. But the key takeaways from the Prayagraj event, I'll just run you through one by one all what he spoke about. Now, first of all, he spoke about the youth power. India's 40 crore young citizens are the country's greatest strength and possess unmatched potential. That's what he focused on. The core focus areas, he centered his interactive address around three key pillars: the dard, that is the pain; the data; and the daulat, that is the wealth. That's what I told you. Then he spoke about the meaningless certificates. He criticized the current educational framework, stating that educational certificates have lost their value because they fail to secure jobs. Then he spoke about a dishonest system with proper slides and presentations, he said. And in fact, he alleged that the recruitment and the examination structure has turned completely dishonest, failing to reward the students' hard work. Then he came on to the paper leaks and the exam crisis. He highlighted the deep distress caused by recurring paper leaks, sudden exam cancellations, and stalled recruitment drives. Then he raised questions on accountability. He questioned who is held responsible when competitive examinations are scrapped or delayed for years, ruining careers. No hope from leadership. That's what he emphasized on. He remarked that expecting fair investigation or justice for students from the Prime Minister or the Education Minister is useless. Then he spoke about the collective youth voice. He urged the students across the country to stay united, stressing that a collective voice is the only power capable of forcing systemic changes. Then he spoke about the political strategy as well, linked the Prayagraj outreach to a wider student mobilization campaign in major educational hubs ahead of the upcoming 2027 Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections. So it was not what started off in Kota. By the time it has reached Prayagraj, Rahul Gandhi has widen the scope of his entire presentation. Now, if you look at the picture, the troika which you saw on the screen just a short while back, this is the troika which he talked about. Uh, Adani, that is, which stands for wealth, the bank balance of BJP's government or the Modi government, which stands at 10,000 crore. Then he spoke about the ideological, uh, uh, how ideologically RSS has crept into every institution. That is the third wheel of the troika is the RSS and its pracharak, that is the Mohan Bhagwat. So this is the three troika. He spoke about Adani, Ambani. He spoke about almost everything. He also dealt about, he was focusing on the public sector units, how the PSUs have been privatized. Everything has been privatized, and there is nothing in the hands of a middle class common man in the country. All that, and if I can just play you some excerpts from the bites, not the full presentation. Just, do we have some excerpts ready from the presentation he's made? If you could play that out, just a few portions, maybe one or two, and then we'll go straight into the discussion.
इस अंधेरे में आपने वो करा जो आपके माता पिता नहीं कर पाए, वो अपने डर का सामना नहीं कर पाए, मगर हिंदुस्तान के स्टूडेंट्स, हिंदुस्तान के युवाओं.
All right, I think there's some connectivity issues, so we'll try and play it out for you again.
मेरी फैमिली का घर यहाँ होता था, तो यहाँ आकर मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है. ये नॉलेज का सेंटर भी हुआ करता था. एक ऐसा टाइम था when Allahabad University was one of the best universities in the country.
So, like what I explained to you, he's spoken about a number of issues. Now, let's head straight into the discussion. Joining me this evening is Professor Ajay Gudavarti from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you so much, Ajay, for joining. We have Professor Tanveer Ejaz from Delhi University's Ramjas College. Thank you so much, Tanveer, for joining. And we also have TK Rajlakshmi, senior journalist and political commentator. Thank you so much, Rajlakshmi, for joining. And let me begin with Ajay Gudavarti. Ajay, the entire presentation Rahul Gandhi made, it started somewhere around 7:20. It ended at about 8:05 or 8:10 roughly. And what would you really say to the presentation that he made today, and how was it different from the ones which he made in Dehradun and also in Kota?
Nilu, even in course of my personal communication, conversation that I had on a couple of occasions with Rahul, he has a very clear structural and historical understanding about the role of RSS. That this entire structure of NEP, for instance, if you go into, it's very clear the direction that education, quality education should be restricted to top 10, 15% of Indian population. Rest 80% should settle to basic skill education, basic vocationalization of education. They should become plumbers, electricians, blacksmiths, whatever, all those basic skilled jobs. And therefore, if you remember, Mr. Mohan Bhagwat had linked the problem of unemployment with dignity of labor in India. And Rahul, I think, is very clear on this aspect that this is both an unfair model that we are presenting to Gen Z. You have seen Gen Z, their creativity, their energy, their talent, the confidence. You cannot turn the clock back. You cannot turn the historical wheel back. You have to only go ahead, where you give newer generations, whether it is backward caste, whether it is Dalits, whether it is tribals, whether it is religious minorities, you have to give them greater opportunities. That's also how you kickstart the economy. What we have witnessed in the last 12 years under Mr. Modi is both a socially regressive and an economically extremely iniquitous model. I think there is a complete match, and Rahul completely understands that. And he in fact also understands, Nilu, the fact that there is a connect across political parties. So he actually has understanding that it is not Congress versus BJP versus something, but he sees there's a structural ruling class cutting across political parties which believes in this philosophy of restricting benefits and social mobility to certain limited castes. That I found it simply amazing that somebody like a mainstream politician, when would we have a mainstream politician talking this kind of a language, And Rahul understands that this is the agenda that will take Congress and India forward. So that alignment is what he's looking for. And I don't think his party is fully with him on that, because his party still has that old, elite social model. And this, I think, is the right thing, Neelu. If you look at even Brazil, where Mr. Lula came back with a big majority. One of the big things that he did, I was in Brazil when, Lula was running for elections, was that he took quality federal institutions to provinces. And he gave the indigenous people of mixed races, lot of educational opportunities. This is what we need to do at this point in time in Indian history, that you have to expand the educational opportunities, stop global quality education has to reach smaller tier 2 cities. It's no
Right.
longer just
But
metropolitan. Not everything
certainly,
is not big.
certainly, those points which you are raising make sense when it comes to the education sector. But also, we cannot help but discuss this from the political angle as well. Now, what does a program like Chhatro Ki Goonj do to Prime Minister Modi and to the BJP's narrative?
I think it's very, as Rahul has clearly is putting, expressing deep ideological structural points, is able to now finally communicate in a popular language through graphs, through data. The previous one he presented, he made it very clear. Budgetary allocations are equal to the amount you are pulling out from their pockets. There is no fresh budgetary allocation. Similarly, in this, he's talking about the monopoly mix between Ambani, Modi, and Mr. Mohan Bhagwat. This is these are very deep political points. You will not see, Neelu, any other mainstream politician, either they understand it in that depth or willing to say it. Even if they understand, not many are willing to say it. I think
Right.
Rahul is one great politician, yeah,
Right.
who is
In
willing
fact,
to put those points on table. And I think it's up to Gen Z now to understand, make a deeper sense. Even one of the limitations of Gen Z protest in Jantar Mantar is you did not have deep political economy analysis. It was Dharmendra Pradhan, Gandhi, all that is fine. It was a popular protest which resisted. But where
right.
is all this coming from? Why are Gen Z so confused?
Right. You're
I
right.
don't understand
I
that.
think right. All right. Now let I had just noted down a few captivating points which he made a mention of, and I'm just going to run through. Run those points through to the audience as well. Now, when he began, he spoke about the youth plus data is equal to the 21st century economy. That's what he started with. Then he said that you all are trapped in the system. Money is extorted, certificates are meaningless, certificates don't get employment. Out of 1,000, only 12 get permanent jobs. Data is stolen. That data goes to Google, Ambani. Then you end up making reels, WhatsApp. And then he says that the reels and the WhatsApp are the intoxication of 21st century. He's talking about these reels and WhatsApp as a 21st century intoxicant. Then he spoke about how Blinkit may aap kaam karo, mazduri karo, but you will not get the jobs. This is what he spoke about. And then he takes examples. In fact, the people who came on stage were students, and how they described that they used to work in Blinkit for 10 hours, then they come back home, study, and then eventually they realize that the exams that they gave, those papers were leaked. So they have been taken for a ride. And that's when Rahul Gandhi steps in and he says that dard aapka and dard aapka. Then he speaks about the data and then the daulat. Dard, data and daulat. That's how he tries to link all this. And he also talks about how this RSS system has seeped into every institution, from Central University to paramilitary to every institution. Now, coming to Tanvir, how do you look at Rahul Gandhi's presentation politically? Of course, what it does to the education system, it has brought the education in the main discourse. And but does it put Rahul Gandhi as a leader who's class apart? What Ajay was saying, that which leader, you can't even think of a leader who's doing such a deep dive into the educational mess currently in the country. So, what does it do to Rahul Gandhi as a persona, his persona as a leader? How does it set him apart?
In fact, Rahul Gandhi's whole speech, if you look at carefully, I think, he speaks with a lot of honesty. and he speaks with a lot of authenticity. If I see his counterpart coming from BJP or right wing politicians, they lack this kind of authenticity, this kind of sort of originality. Now, Rahul Gandhi is of course is trying to connect with the Gen Z. He is assiduously trying to connect with the youth, right? Which, of course, from his youth congress and the other NSUI groups, they were not able to, sort of have a larger impact on the Gen Z. But now Rahul Gandhi has taken it up front and he is trying to connect with the youth, and rightly so. I am seeing that most of the youth are getting attracted to Rahul Gandhi's virtues. So I mean, the manner in which Rahul Gandhi is approaching Gen Z women, also the manner in which Rahul Gandhi is approaching the whole question of education. I mean, we all know that education is in crisis right now. Not only just education, but through education, he's trying to build up a political narrative. And his political narrative is that, look, how if you make the whole academia in crisis, you cannot have a knowledge economy, which of course you are trying to build up a knowledge economy. And if you do not have education system repaired properly, then of course all the institutions would crumble. So he's making a political point through the education system, and I'm glad that he has brought education into a political agenda. He has brought attention of many, not just only Gen Z, because of course Gen Z is a group which is suffering right now. The dard which he is talking about is the suffering and the pain of the education system, which has given
Look,
to all these Gen Z. Yeah.
it's been a strong day of contrast. It was a day when Prime Minister Modi visited Delhi's IIT today, and he spoke about that now you have to work for Viksit Bharat, and if you learn, then you win. Those are the kind of things which he said. The Gen Z over there was smiling. I don't know how much they took it with a pinch of salt, but there was also a story in Telegraph which said that the students over there in Delhi IIT, they were told how much to bow, how many inches you have to bow down before Prime Minister Modi. That is one
So
contrast.
yeah.
Comes
So
in strong contrast with what Rahul Gandhi just spoke about.
with Modi, I think this whole spectacle around, as I say that we are with Modi, we have entered into a spectacle democracy. So on the one hand, you have a spectacle democracy where everything is sort of robotized, that you need to do things like this, you need to speak this much, you need to talk this much, so etc etc. So this is one, a very mimetic kind of sort of organization. But on the other hand, when we look at Rahul's attempt to connect with youth, that seems pretty authentic, which I'm trying to say. It seems pretty authentic. And Rahul's idea that, look, it is the Gen Z, which would make all the difference. And let me, I mean, Gen Z is you cannot undermine them. See, if Modi is talking about Viksit Bharat, but Modi has never, he's not giving data to support. The information to support his argument is not there. It's largely rhetorics, right? Whereas whenever Rahul Gandhi speaks, he gives his argument, he supports his argument through a lot of data, through a lot of data sets and information. So I think there lies the major difference. When Rahul talked about vote chori, also he brought about a minefield of data which explained clearly that, look, this is the whole fact is, and it's very easy. So Gen Z is getting convinced about the fact that the authenticity lies with the left liberal group, right, not with the right wing group. So Gen Z
Absolutely.
at the moment, they are attacking the right wing. They are
Yes, this
against
is the
the
story. I'll just
right
interrupt
wing.
you. This is the story I was talking about. IIT students told how low to bow before Modi. And this was a Telegraph online story. We must salute Telegraph to put out a story like this, and also a picture like this, where students were told how much to bow when before Modi when you take the medal, because it was a convocation ceremony which Prime Minister Modi had gone for. And there the students were instructed by the Delhi IIT authorities that this is how much you have to bow before Prime Minister Modi when he gives you the medal. Then you have to stand up when you are chanting the Vedas. There was a Veda chanting as well. So this is the kind of instruction which was given to the Delhi IIT students. Yes, Tanvi, sorry, because this was something important. That's why I interrupted and explained it. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead,
So,
Tanvi.
so this whole, bowing and behaving in a particular manner is all about cultivating a cult figure, right? Which I think Gen Z has slayed it down, right? Why I'm saying it, that we can see the frustration in Modi's speeches, that he is now feeling very clearly that the kind of cult which was sort of made some years back is now crumbling. And thanks to Gen Z, who are asking very pointed and very sharp questions, and this particular government with Modi doesn't have any answers to these questions, these sharp, real, authentic questions which are relevant, they are asking. So therefore I think, at the moment, the Gen Z seems to be moving towards Rahul Gandhi, or towards any group which is going to take on the right wing, and the conservative groups. Yeah.
So let me come to Raj Lakshmi now. He also spoke about Rahul Gandhi while he was speaking. He said that Reels and WhatsApp are the 21st century intoxicants. Now, let me ask you a very candid question. Has Prime Minister Modi lost the youth power? I mean, has he failed to unlock this youth potential, which all of a sudden Rahul Gandhi has grabbed onto? Uh, Whether it was started by Cockroach Janata Party, or also for that matter that Congress has been doing it for quite some time, the media didn't notice. But whatever Rahul has grabbed onto is one of the biggest youth potentials now, which he's trying to unlock. So, do you think that Modi is losing on the youth power now? Now, no matter what he says, the youth is not getting convinced with whatever he's talking about.
See, clearly, I mean, he and his party people, as well as RSS, are trying hard to win over the youth. Okay, who they feel are an important constituency as far as votes are concerned. I mean, because so I think that's the only objective, right? And so they feel that after the July 20th events, uh, there has been an erosion in that base, right? So there's this so there is overtures, and there's desperate moves, in the sense of outreach programs, and insta reels and all kinds of things, that we've been seeing over the last few days. But clearly it's not going to cut so much ice, because the youth, as such, they're seeing what's happening around them, and everything is unraveling. For instance, I heard some of these young students who were speaking, and they said they were speaking about the kind of facilities at a central university, okay, of this country. I think Allahabad University is a central university. They were saying that the library shuts after a certain time. It's only open for 8 hours. Okay, there are no drinking water facilities. And when we raise these issues, we are told that bring water home. Okay, and that the university is not a place to sort of provide you drinking water, etc. I mean, of course, this was just I think the tip of the issue. And there were others who sort of came and spoke about how they had appeared for certain recruitment exams, police exams, etc., and how those exams did not take the place on time, or that they were leaked. And so there was this ample frustration, this ample so cause for frustration. There was also the issue of fee hike, okay, that one student mentioned. So which is a fact, because in public universities also fees, I mean, have been hiked, and in some occasions, after successful let's say, resistance by the students, by student organizations. For instance, in JNU, etc., there there have been, protests. I mean, around fee hike, hostel fee hike, as well as as well as university fee hikes, and then they were rolled back. So I'm saying is that, even, in, public universities, okay, there has been this constant, in fact, pressure to sort of recover money from the students, because in universities are opening sort of departments like engineering, etc., like in JNU. Okay. And then the issue of, appointments. I mean, somebody even spoke about, niyuktiya, okay, right, about the kind of appointments being made. And now, in fact, Reporters Collective has done an expose on that, on JNU, which says that, in fact, almost, 200 appointments have been made, by either, in fact, bending the rules, uh, uh, and not adhering, to the UGC regulations on appointments, and also sort of creating new rules, in which, select people have been sort of invited to sort of take over those posts, right? So, in fact, merit has been given short shrift. Okay. So, I mean, absolutely. So around 200 appointments, right? And all these have been done in the present tenure of the VC. Who was appointed by this government. And so obviously, all this is going to have, cascading effect. The nature of teaching, and the quality of students that are going to be produced. So then you have, the costs of education, is one thing, Nilu, which, of course, the high out of pocket expenditure,
No,
on
but
both health and education
all
is
those
really
things
bad.
are there,
Yeah.
Raj Lakshmi. But what does it
Yeah.
do to Rahul Gandhi and Congress? Does it make them more popular with the Gen Z, with the Gen Alpha, with the youth voters? And in fact,
Well,
Rahul Gandhi also had replied on the Instagram about how the women should express. And is he trying to cater to the Gen Z? Is he trying to cater to the women? And it's like a multi pronged approach, which is helping Congress because of Rahul Gandhi's outreach to the Gen Z and the
yeah.
women voters.
See, Nilu, to be fair, I do not think that the NSUI, okay, which is the students' wing of the Congress, has ever raised educational issues to the extent that it should have, okay, as compared, to the left student organizations who have
Yes,
always raised, whether it's issues of school fees, whether it's issue of,
that's right.
of, let's say, in fact, bus fee also, for instance, the specials that run in DU, etc. I mean, I'm saying it everywhere. I mean, all over India. Okay, it's not the NSUI that has been seen, in fact, coming on the streets and sort of agitating on these issues. Okay, in fact, it should have, right? I mean, as a students wing, of the Congress. But it's good now that at least, I mean, if it's either through the CJP movement or through the events, that happened, on July 20th, that the Congress has sort of become rather serious about, in fact, centering on issues of on education, right? But I think, let's also not sort of forget, Nilu, that this entire fiscal deficit has to be met with, etc., was all, during during the Congress years, right? That we have to control our fiscal deficit. So here you have the government that, cuts back, on spending on education and health and other areas in the social sector, right? So it starts from there. And in fact, the BJP has only sort of taken that agenda forward and far more, aggressively. Okay. So I think that a huge amount of course correction and a huge amount of, ideological correction also has to be done, in fact, within the Congress. And it's a fact that not everybody in the that not everybody in the party agrees with what he says, because there's a huge section which is, conservative, right, and which does not want to speak in terms of, increasing spending on things, like education and health. For them, fiscal deficit is again the same thing. So things have to be, in fact, fundamentally changed. It can't just be superficially addressed. And it means, in fact, a complete radical change in outlook. Okay, it can't be just a halfway, in fact, measure. Okay, that we're addressing these things now, and take care, it's because they are a big, vote bank, so we also cannot sort of let go
Right.
of them. So I'm saying that the Congress can't have that opportunistic approach Yeah.
Okay, so since Rahul has already announced that he is going to do a number of programs like these in the run up to the UP elections, coming for the final round of questions, very briefly, Ajay, uh, can these programs really help Congress revive in Uttar Pradesh? Very briefly.
Well, I mean, Nilu, I think there will certainly be a certain shift towards, youth might move towards Congress. I don't think it will be that easy to revive Congress in Uttar Pradesh. That's a very tall claim because literally they don't have an organization on the ground. Second, when it comes to electoral, we should note, Nilu, in Indian context, it's a long haul that the questions that we raise in the social domain, it's a big task to convert it into the electoral politics. I think that's where also Rahul is admirable, that I think what he's doing is independent of electoral calculation. These issues need to be raised, for whatever worth they are. We have to put the issue of education as a public good, health as a public good in the public domain. Whether it will translate, I think that we need a lot of organizational work, that we need, overlap with the caste, networks, with the class networks, with lot of issues that exist on the ground. I don't think or Congress has the organization heft. Whether Rahul can alone pull it off with this kind of a language, the problem again, Neelu, is that it's only him. I don't think even
Right,
other second-tier leaders, in Congress
true.
in Uttar Pradesh barely understand what he's saying. The link
Right,
between NEET, the link between NEP, the link between caste, census, the link between all this is a complex domain. And I think
right,
Congress at times should start political classes for its own leaders
right.
and cadres. So that they understand what Rahul is saying and they successfully repeat it on the ground for mass mobilization.
Right. In fact, you
Today's
made a very important point.
I think
Yeah,
there's a complete disconnect that Rahul speaks at one pitch. There is nothing that grows to the ground. I think that gap is what is
right.
really hitting Congress in terms of their electoral outcome, and they have to course correct this.
Right. I think that's a very significant point. That Rahul is at a level where the party cannot connect with him. I mean, cerebrally, what he's talking about in terms of content, in terms of the deep diving of issues. Tanvir, what you feel is the biggest challenge now? Rahul Gandhi has opened up like a sea. But will the party be able to connect with Rahul and also match up with his pace? That's a very important point which Ajay raised. But what is your feeling about it?
Well, I think that Rahul also must think about restructuring the organization because, when you want to connect with youth, you need to have youth leaders within the party itself,
Yeah,
and
true.
youth leaders who can seamlessly, connect with the young generation, right? And also, not just simply connecting, but also have the same kind of wavelength and same kind of approach towards politics. So one is, of course, he needs to think in terms of structurally changing the organization, the rank and file of the organization, and of course, as Ajay said, that creating second and third level rung of leaders who can
Right,
together build up the party, right? So
right,
what is this? And the most important, I think, the challenge which Rahul faces in terms of connecting with youth is is that, the youth at the moment, they are exploring, right? They're exploring. We have seen in Bakipur, for example, is very typical of the electoral. I mean, in terms of electoral significance, it's very typical in a sense that the youth move towards experimentation, right? The youth move towards Jan Suraj, which, in the last elections just 6 months back, they did not vote for him, but they en bloc voted for him and not for Congress, right? So this is one thing that
right.
Congress need to learn from this election, right?
Right, but when I see Chhatro Ki Goonj program, I'm quite tempted to quote a story which many grandmothers have narrated to their toddlers and children. Coming to you, Raj Lakshmi, on that, the rat which was caught in the middle of a storm doesn't know where to go. If he goes out, it's raining. If he comes inside, there's darkness. Uh, the grandmothers have often narrated this story, in terms of challenges of life, what children need to face. And if I put the story in context with what is happening with Rahul Gandhi and also with Prime Minister Modi at the same time, do you think Modi is a nervous man as and when this Chhatron Ki Gunj program is advancing, it's pacing up in terms of its scale, magnitude. And now that Rahul Gandhi has said that he's going to expand this program to a much larger level, and he's going to widen the spectrum. Today, it was just not about Gen Z, it was about unemployment, it was about Adani, it was about RSS, it was about PSUs. So the way he is going hammer and tongs on issues against Prime Minister, do you think that he must be a nervous man now, just looking at this
Well, they
program called
should.
Chhatron Ki Gunj? Yes.
Well, they should be. I think irrespective of the outcome of the Chhatro Ki Gunj and and the strength of of that meeting, because first of all, the way Sonam Wangchuk was bundled off by the police, and then the July 20th actions. Okay, these are the two things which are not going to sort of die out of people's minds soon, right? Because Sonam Wangchuk, I mean, he didn't sort of represent any political party. Okay, he appeared to be like a neutral person, and then he had a certain reputation, and then to sort of whisk him off like that in the way it was did, it was done. So that really impacted, I mean, like a lot of people. I mean, it's quite surprising, but I did not know that he had such a huge following. Okay, amongst among the young sort of generation. Now, of course, what Rahul is doing is good. Okay, and I do feel that yes, he's been, in spite of all kinds of things said about him, all kinds of things that written about him, he's sort of stayed on, he stayed on course. So that, I think, one must give it to him. Whether the
True.
effectivity of that or not can be assessed, but at least he's there. Okay, he's at least sort of doing it, and he should just do it consistently. And if
Right.
and when the sort of Congress comes to power, or even I think the states where they are in power,
Right.
they can make those course corrections within education also. They can do
Right.
it. I mean, it's not that they can't do it, right? But then the stakes are too high because there's so many
Absolutely.
private
Right.
players involved, right? And
Right.
there's a lot to be addressed.
Right. And that one question still remains pending: who fired, whose orders the pellet guns were fired, whose
Yeah.
orders were AK-47 fired. There was a student today also on the stage which said that there was one student who died after the AK-47 was fired. So all those questions need answers, more clarity, and some honesty as well on the part of the government. But will that happen is a big question. We'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Professor Tanveer Rajlakshmi. Thank you very much for joining.